I can hear the baby go outside. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. So hello, Rachel.
Hello, Holly. So nice to be here.
So happy to be chatting. I'm sorry it's taken so long, to be honest.
That's all right. It is.
I have now finished my exams this week, and I'm feeling like that. Even though I really enjoy the subject I'm studying, like that relief, I feel like my mind can be used again.
Oh, thank goodness. Got a little bit of extra space in there somewhere now.
My laptop just like made a weird clicking noise, and then everything turned off.
What is it about us too? Like, why
don't
aren't we
know.
supposed to speak to each other? Oh my
And then
God.
when I was like trying to answer your call, it was just playing me the recording of what we just said.
Oh my gosh.
Right.
Anyway,
Let's hope this goes a bit better then.
try again.
Let's talk about your new book. Let's talk about what it is and what it's for.
Super. Yes, before we get thrown off the call again, that was a good idea.
Yeah.
Well, very excitingly, I have the copy here, proof copy. So exciting.
Yeah.
So this is the ultimate film and darkroom workbook. And basically, it's a place to build an archive. It's a reference book. It's a way of creating a kind of legacy of your work, really. It's so that you can hopefully help you to sort of like shoot, process, print better, by recording things, by planning things, by using the logbook pages that are in here, by journaling your ideas, kind of keeping it all in one place. And the idea is that there's also a section for like reviewing and reflecting on your work, because I found so much that it just doesn't really exist, like over the years I've been running my business, Little Vintage Photography. I've had so many, hours and hours, obviously, of workshops with people, thousands of conversations about analog and film photography, and it kind of over that time I've found that the same kind of things are coming up again and again, and like people would come in to do a workshop, they'd eventually get to the point and they were like, brilliant, I really want to learn how to do this. And then they would do this and they'd go away with full of enthusiasm, and then they'd get stuck, and then they'd be like, inside they know how to do it because I know and I've seen them do it, and they felt very confident when they left, but that something happens, life takes over and things. And I thought there must be a way of kind of like there being a little darkroom companion, that can kind of like sit there next to them. And the idea is that you work through this. There's no judgment in it. You fill it in yourself. So it's not an instruction manual. It's not like a how-to guide or anything like that. But I put this together so to give people a space where everything can kind of be in one place. You can kind of like download some of your thoughts from your various different notebooks that you take out with you. And it means that you've got a place that you can refer back to build that kind of like archive of your work and see how you're progressing, if you're able to, over like a period of time. And the review and reflect section is like at the end of each set of section, just a few like questions to kind of like prompt you into thinking about what you've produced, what you've made, if you're happy with that, if there's something else you would like to do. And it's just kind of a way of naturally, gently, I'm hoping, helping people to become more confident and more consistent in what they're doing in terms of shooting and processing and printing in the darkroom. So that's kind of the ethos behind it, really, and I hope it'll be really helpful. It's the sort of thing that I really wanted and I couldn't find, so I made it.
Yeah. Yeah. So you say each section in it, is that like a time period section or like a specific learning section?
Great question. I've done it as 12 sections that are repeated, basically. So you could do it as months. Obviously, some people like to work through it in a month by month way. Other people might want to kind of like start in May, and it might take them 4 years to get through, like 2 sections or something. So it's entirely up to you, really. I have done it non-dated to make sure that it's possible to sort of start it whenever you want to. And again, you know, because everybody shoots at a different rate, processes at a different rate, prints at a different rate, I wanted to give some kind of like semblance of structure. But I've basically made them kind of like 12 sections that could be months if you like,
Yeah.
repeated through the book. And so by the time you get to the end, you will have gone through 12 sections. So in each of those, you've got various different kind of pages and sheets that are included. So I can tell you a little bit about that. So in each of the sections, you get like 5 planner diary sheets. It's a week per view. So the idea is that you can put like 1 or 2 little bullet points on each day that you're doing something. Either you can do that as a record of what you've done or to plan ahead. So you could fill in like a whole section's dates and then go, oh, I know I'm doing a photo walk, you know, in a week's time, and plan that in, or that kind of thing. Or you could be like, oh, I happened to take this camera out today. I've got that roll of film in it, and I went and shot something, or I went and met up with an analog photographer friend, or I had a conversation with somebody, you know, and it's a way of like noting that like each day. Then there's 3 blank pages which are journaling pages, and again that you can refer back to and cross-reference across them. The idea being that obviously a lot of us have like a notebook that we take out with us, whether that's digitally on our phone or a little photo memo book or something. And I thought this would be a good way of, once you get back to base, if you like, you can kind of like download your thoughts and your ideas about that into this journaling space. It's almost a way of going through that process again of editing your work and thinking about, okay, I'm taking it from the raw details of what I've got here in my scribbles. Actually, what is it that I want to take from that and make an actual note of? Because I've always found that process of writing it down a couple of times really useful. Sort of like get me to the core of the idea that I'm thinking about. There's also a page for shoot and process as a logbook page. I did a little bit of a poll to find out kind of on average like how many rolls of film people shoot. Obviously it varies wildly, but I've given a space for shooting up to 10 rolls of film in that month. If you wanted to, you could split the columns and make it 20 rolls of film. So it means that there's no judgment. If you shoot 1 roll of film, great. If you don't shoot any, that's also totally fine. It's just that the space is there for you. 2 sheets of darkroom printing logbook pages, because that gives you space for 20 prints or 20 versions, if you like. So you could make like version 1 to 5. You could do lots more prints and just kind of like add them in a column. There's also that review and reflect page, which is at the end of that section. And there's also at the beginning of each section a little bit of extra space for like useful information. So things like your key recipes that you're working on, that you know, that you might be using for your developing, or if there's particular settings that you're using all the time. Again, I found that a lot of the time, places where people tend to be shooting or processing or printing don't have great Wi-Fi signal, don't have like signal at all sometimes, or phone. And so it's like, this is a way of literally writing it down and having it there in front of you. So if you haven't got that, and if you're in the dark room, you haven't got to switch on your phone and worry about the light. You can just read it under your red light and go, that I'm sorted. So you've kind of got it there ready to go. And I also added like a little section for inventory, because again, that's something that I feel like over the months you forget what you've got in terms of film and chemistry and things like that. So if you make a little inventory list at the beginning of the month, it means that you can then plan in the planner pages. Oh, I'm running a bit short on portrait, or I'm running a bit short on some FP4, you know, or whatever you want, and that you can see that you need. So by the time you get to the next month, you don't have a, oh my God moment, I've run out of film, or my chemistry is gone and I thought I got more stop than I had, or more fixer than I had, or whatever. So that's kind of like the idea. As long with that, I've also added in like a cut out and keep kind of like section that you can rip out if you want and stick it on your door as a checklist for if you're going out to shoot or if you're going to the dark room, so you don't forget your necessities. So it's like, this is something that obviously I do all the time. I've forgotten various things, and there's nothing more frustrating than getting to the place to shoot and process and going, I've totally forgotten my batteries or my film or my negatives, you know, if you're printing or you're masking or something like that. So I thought that again gives a space for, depending on what people use, a place for them to write that down. And then I've added some little like prompts and things. So if people get a bit stuck in a rut or aren't quite sure, some like photo theme ideas. So there's a page that you can refer back to for that. So you could do a 365 project, a 12 project. You could do one a day, you could do, a month or a week or 52 project, that kind of thing. And some little like photography bingo charts. So I called it a chart of small inspirations. So if you do get a little bit stuck, it's just a few little ideas like, maybe today is about going out and shooting to follow your heart, or maybe today is about perhaps like this week, it's worth having a look at how the physics of light works or something like that, just sort of little inspirations for people. So there's 4 of those, so like 1 a quarter if you were looking at it as a year, and there's 12 in each of those, and they're all different. So as you as you're working through, the idea is that you're building up like, you might have done a few of those, and then you can move on to the next one, and you can always come back, to the chart number 1 or chart number 2, whatever.
Yeah.
If you haven't done them all, there's like, I should look at prizes at some point. That's something I'll think about. But yeah, so I also included like a photo walk or event kind of like sheet, like a little checklist for if you're arranging one, if you're going on one, that kind of thing, so that people have got something as like a sort of starting point to help get them out there, getting them shooting, make them feel like, I can do this as well. Like there's no reason why it has to be scary,
Yeah.
So I think the main aim is making sure that people feel more confident in what they're doing and encouraged to kind of like motivated and keep motivated, really, is the idea. So
yeah, I think that sounds amazing. Like, then there's so many bits in that I'm like, I'm sure I am already on. I'm sure I've signed up to the I'm sure I have, because I so want this. But so this year, like, this is the perfect time to be talking about it in January, because this is when I like obviously start all my planning again. And so I've got myself one of these like power of 3 notebooks. But this is obviously like, what goals do I want to achieve? I'm keeping it as like creative goals. So it's nothing to do with me being at school. It's nothing to do with family life. It is just about what is it that I want to achieve creatively this year. But that is just like a time scale. Whereas I'm starting to think, right, last year I made all these things that I loved making, but they're all noted and like referenced in different notebooks, whatever I had to hand while I was making. And so I'm now like, okay, well, what if I want to remake this print that I made for this? And it's, which notebook is it in? And like working, like you inspiring me to do my cyanotype stuff. I've just done some yesterday, but like I haven't really got anywhere coherent like to note it all down. So I really feel like I'm so excited for your workbook to come out, because I'm like, I really want somewhere where I can like, I don't know if you know that I make book boxes and sell prints with a mystery book. I'd like somewhere where I have all of those together, so that I can be like, okay, I want to remake this book box. Where was the settings for that print? That's something that I really need, and that I was so excited about when you mentioned this book that you're making. But I also love the stuff that you're saying about just helping to nudge people into shooting as well, because that really reminds me of when I first came back to Analogue during COVID, when I was in like massive depression, and I was like, I need something for me. It needs to not be about the kids and about family. It needs to be for me. And I haven't touched my cameras in years. What do I do? Like, how do I just get myself back into this? And so those like gentle nudges of like, okay, this is what you need to go on a photo walk, or that is just perfect to me. Like, that is just what you need.
So pleased to hear you say that, Holly, because this is literally why I've put it together. Like I say, I've been through very similar kind of like peaks and troughs, I suppose, shall we say, and I've just found like over the years I was getting a bit frustrated about that, and trying to, and kind of thinking, I'm seeing these lovely people come through and do workshops with me, and I want to keep them to stay inspired, and they'll go away, and I know that then they go, I don't quite know what to do. And it's like, although this doesn't give you the answers, this is very much, it's like, it's an open book, if you like, you fill it in as you go. I'm hoping that it will be at least those little nudges, those little bits of like, oh, okay, well, if the only thing you do today is take one frame on that roll of film that you already have loaded up, just make a little note of it, you know. And then
Mm.
you've got a record of, I did that today, and that was my frame a day. I'm calling it like a frame a day or whatever. And then you know, you've got the information there, and then by the time you finish that role, and if you do that like once a day or once a week or whatever, there's no like pressure with that. Like eventually you will finish that roll of film, and then you will process it, and you will either do that at the lab or yourself at home, and then that means that you can go to the logbook section and write it in, like date started, date finished, completed, yay, you know. And it's just like, sometimes it's about going, what have we already got as well. Like some of the inspirations are like, look at your archive that you've got, your negatives, take one, print it up bigger than you've ever printed it before, just in some way, to see how it changes how you look at it.
Yeah.
Because it's those kind of things I think we do, and we forget that we've made, or we forget that we've done, or that we've been inspired by, and then we don't kind of like reward ourselves with that. We're not reviewing, we're not reflecting, we're not thinking, oh yeah, I've made that, and maybe that's actually something really cool that I could, you know, take further. And then you can go and journal it, you know, and then you can cross-reference that, and you've got all that recorded. So I'm so pleased to hear you say that, Holly, because it sounds like you're the perfect person to hopefully use it, which is awesome. I'll just give you a quick little glimpse. So, for example, these are kind of like your week per view page. So the idea is that you've got up here at the top, you've got like what month it is, what week it is, a monthly theme, a weekly theme. You can fill in your own, obviously, but you know, if you need a little bit ready to go, then go to page 11, and it will tell you know. And I've got like a whole list of them that you could use. You can date it, you can put your roll number in, what your frame was, and then you can reference your journal and your logbook there. So once you get to the printing part, like you were mentioning about your cyanotypes, obviously, so these are your journaling pages. You can put your date in, you can put your reference code in there, and then you can see up here as well, bit stuck for inspiration. There you go. Check out page 12 and page 54, and those are the little inspiration bingo charts. So once you've got those, you could then go straight to, if you wanted to, your shoot and process logbook. There we go. So that's here, and you've got your cross-reference page numbers, your sheet numbers, the date started, finished, camera use, format, all the information you might need for processing, for shooting and or processing. And obviously, like I say, you can fit at least 10 rolls of film in there.
Yeah.
And then for your darkroom, so for your printing, for your cyanotypes, it's like, again, a reference number, whatever frame it was, when did you print it, what did you use. There's a space for like paper stock, for exposure time, for other, you know, so you can, the idea is that this is a basis, you know, for you to adapt as you see fit as a photographer and as a creative yourself.
Yeah.
So I can't include single thing in there, but people are very inventive, and I feel like just having like a space to start to put that in,
Yeah,
that opportunity.
Yeah, like I probably wouldn't use it for every single roll of film I develop, but like last year I tried to develop some FPP Let It Snow, and there was no information online about the developer that I use, so I had to like make some estimates, and then so that would be the perfect place to keep that. Like, this is how I made it using this developer.
Exactly. So you've got, like I say, and what I would suggest with that is you would use probably your first. Here we go. I'm just going to turn to, okay, so this is section or month 5, and you can see here your quick reference, your key recipes or key contacts, and your inventory here. So you would put, you know, you would do some experiments, you found out, oh, this was actually the correct ratio for this particular developer to make that work. You'd put it in there, and it'd be like, that's your note. So you can straight away go back to it in the future and be like, I know exactly what it was I did, and I know when I did it, and I also have it referenced in my logbook, so I can look at the literal negatives and go, oh yeah, I was happy with that.
Yeah.
I'm just going to do that again. So it just makes you a bit quicker to get back into it, because especially if there's been a bit of a gap at any point, life takes over, right? But when there's a bit of a gap, you can kind of come back and go, oh, it feels just too big and too overwhelming to get started again. So I was like, this is a way to just go, right, I can straight away go back into it, and there's no barriers there. It's like, it's all written in front of me. This is what I'm aiming to do. What's the quickest route to getting to that point that I'm actually creating again? Because then people get into the flow, you know, and once you're in the flow, it's fine. It's just that initial little step and that little nudge to try.
The other thing this is reminding me of, so I had a chat with my friend Megan, she's at a similar place where I was, where she's had 2 children and she's like completely lost herself. She wants to get back into creativity, and she started reading a book called The Artist's Way. I don't know if you've read it.
I do seasonally go and do an actual in-person group of The Artist's Way. Basically, a wonderful woman called Helen, who's one of my best friends. She's in her mid-70s. She's the most amazing person, and she introduced me to it. I went and did a couple of like courses with her, and she does them as like 6-7 week, like 2 hours a week. And we have tea and cake as well, which is always a bonus. Yeah. But we just kind of like work through various parts of that, and it has honestly helped keep my sanity. Like over the years, going and just doing that 2 hours a week has like, it's just absolute magic.
Yeah. You know? So my friend was saying that she started doing these like creative dates with herself, and your guide just sounds like the perfect thing, that just you don't even have to like worry about, okay, where was I last time? I've got my book. Let's just start from here. Like that's absolutely. So it just
I hadn't even thought about that, Holly, and it's like, this is crazy, isn't it? Because you don't always join up the dots in like what you're.
Well, it's just your lived experience, isn't it? So you don't even necessarily realise. Yeah,
exactly. So yeah, that's so sweet that you've mentioned that, because it's made me go, of course, I already live this. I hadn't even really recognise that I'd done that. But yeah, artist dates, you know, gratitude journals, all of those kind of things. It was about bringing that all together, really, in a way. But obviously this is sort of more specifically around analog and film photography and darkroom printing, because we've got the logbook sort of like section, which is really important to me to have that in there. But you don't have to be either a darkroom printer, you know, like you can go and shoot and just process, you know, at the lab or what have you. You can still make a record of it. It still will help kind of like keep track of
this is the thing, like that I'm really beginning to realize, is that I'm not just like a photographer. I think I'm more of an artist. It's just that photography is my medium. And so all of the stuff that is like referenced with art relates to me too. And so I, you know, this is what the sort of mindset that I bring to these things is like, it's just being creative. It's just giving yourself some space to play and explore without forgetting what you're doing.
And absolutely, you know, like this isn't, although I've called it the ultimate, it's because it obviously includes lots of different kind of like aspects of what we do, but it's a companion piece, really, you know, like it sits alongside your file of negatives or your file with your prints in, you know. There's literally not physical space to put everything in here, but you could, you know, use some little like photo corners, add a few little test strips in, or, you know, a few little experiments or some instant stuff. You know, you could in terms of like the weeks and things, you know, these are perfect for like an Instax mini size. You know, it was thought about. I couldn't quite make them exactly the same size for Instax Mini, but it's close enough. But again, I know that people are very creative and inventive, and it's like you just utilize the tool as you see fit, you know. So you can add your scribbles on this. You can, you know, put in a couple of test strips or a few little references.
Well, that was my first sort of staple in some test strips,
and you know, and if not, just have a little ring binder like that goes alongside it, like I do, with my negs in it, and, you know, a little Polly Pocket to put in my prints, and then you've got that reference across. As long as you just put a little sticker on the edge of those, then that's the idea, is that you can reference across, which is awesome. So yeah, there's lots of things that, you know, at some point I'll probably tweak, or once people have started to use it, I'll find out more about what it is that they want more of or less of or what have you. So I've done this as a basis around what I've been told and conversations I've had and things that I'd needed, and I'm hoping that it will be a really good starting point for other people to try it as well. Thank you so much though, Holly, for asking me to talk about this today. And
do you have any more time, or is this going to have to be the end?
So sorry,
no, that's fine. I think that's a perfect
that's absolutely fine. The reality of, like, because we were going to talk about being a mum, obviously, and the reality is that I've got to now pack everything up here, drive over to my dark room. I'm meeting the in-laws because they need to see the new space where I've got my new dark room in the basement, the old bank. So that's
I was going to ask you about that as well, but that's fine.
So that's for the future. But in terms of the workbook, it is it's available to pre-order now. So you can go on to my website And I know that you've signed up, Holly, for the wait list, so I will be emailing out a discount for everybody who's signed up to the wait list. I've closed the wait list now, so it's actually just available to buy, and then anybody who had already signed up to the wait list will get a little discount code come through. Okay.
Lovely. Yeah. Thank you, Rachel.
Oh, thank you so much, Holly. And there's so much more to chat about, so we'll do that soon.
One day.
Bye.